Here. So hi everybody. After lots of requests this week, you asked me if I would look at kind of helping a lot of you undo the hours of sitting that many of you are having to do at home. It's funny, isn't it, when we're working from home, we tend to sort of sit for longer. So today's focus is going to be looking at some hip release. A bit like last week, we're going to look at lots of lovely spinal movement and also just some releasing of the shoulders, because that just tends to be where it gets tight for most of us in general life, really. So I thought we would have a little look at that today. Why don't we all just start for a moment standing, if I could ask you to do that. Just find a little space where you can stand. And I just want you to close your eyes, if that's appropriate for you. Just close your eyes for a moment. And just have a few moments here where you just take a few breaths. And you just take a moment out of your day to just check in with how you're feeling. So how are you today? What's your energy levels like? What about the weight through your feet? Does it feel even, left to right, or do you feel like you're more stood on one side than the other? Do you feel like you're more on the front of your feet or the back of your feet? And if you take some nice deep breaths in here, do you feel your weight sway? Maybe it sways forward, maybe it sways back, maybe it sways towards the left or the right. So just notice what happens when you breathe. Maybe you stay in the center. Just notice your knees. Do the knees feel comfortable or do they feel a little bit locked out? Just without judgment, just noticing that we can compare at the end of our session. And then just notice your pelvis. Does your pelvis feel like it's above your feet? Or maybe it feels like it's behind your feet or to one side or the other. Tune into your spine. Notice the curve of your lumbar spine going in towards your belly button. The curve of your thoracic spine coming out. And the curve of your neck going back in. And again, just notice, how do my curves feel? My back feel pretty straight today? Or does it feel like it's got some nice curves? What about my ribs? As I breathe in, can I notice that my rib cage expands out to the side? And as I breathe out, comes back into center. Just breathing in and breathing out. How does the left side of your body feel? Does it feel the same length as the right side? Does it feel longer? If you were to imagine looking at yourself in the mirror, would it feel like one shoulder was higher than the other or one shoulder was more dropped? If you were to see yourself side on, would you imagine that your shoulders feel like they're rolled forward, they're rolled back? Maybe one feels like it's more rolled forward. And if you're focusing on the idea of the shoulders rolling in or rolling out, maybe you could notice that the arm bones might feel like they've rolled in a little bit. And then as you bring your awareness to your head, just notice if your head feels like it's above your ribs, if your ribs feel like it's above your pelvis, and if your pelvis feels like it's above your feet. Or maybe they don't. And just have a moment here as a little snapshot, just noticing where you are without judgment, where you started this session today. And then bring yourself to lie down onto your mat. So you're just going to lie down with your knees bent, feet flat, head down. If you are one of those in my classes that often needs a little pillow under your head, then just kind of know that you could fold up a towel or a blanket or something like that. You don't want something that's too high. So if you're somebody who we give quite a few pillows to, you might want that. Yeah, great, everyone. Otherwise, just kind of notice what you want to feel when you've got your head, when you're lying in this position, is that your head being back hasn't sent your ribs forward. That's often why we lift the head, just to allow the ribs to come back. Okay, so that's why you would kind of notice. If you haven't got one today, then just bear that in mind for future classes. And then just have a moment here, just again checking in. So the mat can provide you with some feedback and can be your teacher today. And just notice the soles of your feet, the back of your pelvis now, the back of your rib cage and the back of your head. And again, just make any adjustments as you tune in here. So last week, those of you who were with us last week, we were really working on some pelvic stability and some pelvic mobility. And we spent some time looking at our pelvic clock. So let's just revisit that because it's a really great place to start. In my experience, if you can get the pelvis into a balanced place, everything else is kind of on a bit of a winning streak, really. So if you grab your fingers and just take your fingers down to the bottom of your bum and see if you can find the little bony bits, just have a little prod there, that are your sitting bones. Yeah, so you can be the teacher today. And being aware that the front of your pelvis would be like a clock. So your belly button would be 6 o'clock on your clock and your pubic bone would be, belly button would be 12 o'clock and your pubic bone would be 6 o'clock. And I want you to imagine you've got a little small marble in the middle of your clock and you're rolling your marble towards 6. Your pelvis is going to rock away from you. Like these sitting bones are going to come and touch into your fingers more. And can you notice that they also widen? And then as you bring your pelvis back to center and allow your pelvis to roll back towards your belly button, 12 o'clock, can you feel that your sitting bones pick up and close? So just want you to spend a little bit of time rocking between these two places, but really focusing on this idea that the sitting bones widen and open and then close again. You might want to inhale as you widen and open to 6 o'clock. That's the pelvis rolling away from you. And exhale as you come back. And remembering that you really want to do this with the least amount of effort possible. Okay, and if you're not sure what that looks like, do this with loads of effort, like really give it some welly. And then just notice, what if you let go of all of that? Could you still find the same amount of movement, just the pelvis rocking away and coming back towards you? Now I want you to place your hands on your ribs, just gently, just resting on your ribs. And just notice as your pelvis comes back to 12 o'clock that the ribs kind of feel like they sink towards the mat a little bit. Now, as you send your pelvis away, could you think about keeping your ribs heavy? Now, they will move a little bit, but what can often happen is when the pelvis is tight, the ribs can rock and roll, and that can be what's actually moving the pelvis. So again, you're going to be the teacher here, and you're going to move between your 12 and 6, just thinking about keeping the ribs a little bit heavy for me. That's it, everyone. You're all looking great. Good. Inhale as you send the pelvis away. Exhale as the pelvis rolls back, and just notice that exhale just gives you a very gentle abdominal connection. It doesn't take a lot of work to switch on those deep abs. Your breath will do it when you connect to it. And then come and find a central place. Again, place your hands back on your pelvis now. And just notice, can you find a place ideally where 12 and 6 are roughly in line with each other? That may be uncomfortable for you. So if it is, that's okay. Go to where feels comfortable, but know where we're trying to get to. Now your hands are going to be on the outside, your bony parts of your hips, okay? And you're thinking about your marble again, and you're going to slide the marble towards the left side. Let's think that's 3 o'clock. So you're going to notice 3 o'clock on the clock is going to drop down. And then can you notice that the opposite side, let's call that 9 o'clock, rises up. And just notice how the right thigh bone is reaching out long to allow that to happen. Then find center, let the right side, 9 o'clock, go down, reach the left thigh bone out. So that what's happening is your pelvis is moving side to side, but the legs are able to stay relatively quiet in the middle, that the legs aren't rocking side to side. Very nice, everyone. Now, let's be a teacher again. Grab your thumbs, put your thumbs under your bottom rib, and your index finger is just at the top of your pelvis, so just kind of the bones that you can feel. And as you go side to side now, just notice, are you able to maintain the space between the bottom rib and the hip? You may notice that as you go one way or maybe both ways, that this space wants to shorten. We don't really want that. So if that happens, just really focus on the opposite leg reaching out a little bit longer so you're able to find the space. Very nice, everyone. And now find center for me. Just allow the arms to come out to the side, about shoulder height or a little bit lower. Palms facing up if that's comfortable, but palms can be facing down. And I just want you now to allow both your legs to roll over to the right-hand side. So the feet are going to roll over to side two. And I want you to reach your left thigh bone out, just like you were doing. So you get a nice stretch down that left side. Could you now direct your breath into your left rib cage, the left side of your lungs? Just to increase that stretch, just a couple of times. Just looking to create some space. And then on your exhale, feel your rib cage come back to the mat. Let that bring your pelvis up. Let that bring your legs up. Let's go over to the other side. Again, just let the legs fall really easily. Reach your right thigh bone out now. Really feel the front of your hip open. The right side, all the fascia and the tissue here can just lengthen. And breathe into the lung on your right side just to expand it. Just a couple of times here. And then on your next exhale, just feel like the ribs start this movement. So you let the ribs come back first. You're going to feel a nice oblique connection as you do that. That's going to bring the pelvis and that's going to bring the legs. Your arms can stay out wide here or down a little lower if that's more comfortable for you. Your legs, just check in that your legs are parallel with those bony bits of your hips. So not the outside of your hips, the kind of bony bits at the front. And you ideally want those hips, knee and second toe in alignment here. Bring both hands back onto your pelvis again, one on either side. Our pelvis is in two halves, so you're on each of the pelvic halves. And I just want you to just allow your right leg on its own now to open out to the side. And just notice what happens. What does the left leg want to do? Does the left leg want to copy? Just notice that. What happens to your hip bones? Do they stay centered, or does one go off to one side, one go off to the other? And then just bring the leg back. This time, I want you to think about keeping that left leg nice and still. So just put a bit of weight, a bit of stiffness into that left side and allow the right side to open out now so that nothing changes in the left leg and nothing changes under your hand. So both hip bones, if they were light, would be shining up towards the ceiling and then bringing that back in. Just one more time for me. As you go out this time, imagine that it's the belly button that's just giving the leg some slack to open out. You've got some stiffness in the left leg, but you've got some slack from the belly button. And then use your exhale to feel how the belly button could just draw the leg back into center. Let's go with the other side. So again, without any thought, just let the left leg come out to the side. What does the right side want to do? What do your hips want to do? You might find it's very different on this side. And then bring it back to center. Now bring a little stiffness into that right leg and allow the left leg to just open just as far as you can keep both those hips shining up towards your ceiling. Allow your belly button on the exhale to just feel like it's drawing the leg back in. So let's inhale, let the leg open out. Exhale, feel that drawing in. So we're not really pulling anything in, we're just using that little abdominal connection from the exhale to bring the leg back in. Okay, we're going to go back to moving our right leg now. So allow the right leg to open out. Remember, there's a little bit of stiffness in that left side, just to where you can keep both hips shining up. From here now, slide the right leg straight. It's going to slide straight turned out. And just as it gets to being straight, you're going to notice it's going to want to turn back into a neutral place. And then you drag the leg back in. Let's do the other side. So a little bit of stiffness on the right side to support the left side, opening out. The leg lengthens. Notice how it's going to turn out as it straightens away. And then it straightens up and comes back in. You're going to keep alternating. You're going to use your hand as a little guide to make sure that you haven't rocked over to one side. I'm going to come and have a little look at you all. Nice, everyone. Okay. Now, could we reverse? So let's go back to moving our right leg. So our left leg's going to have a little bit of stiffness in it. So you're going to slide the right leg away. You're then going to turn the leg out. As you bring it back in, the leg's going to be at an angle, just like it was before. And then that exhale and that belly button is going to draw the leg back in. You're going to slide the leg out long. You're going to turn it out. You're going to draw the heel back in. It's going to turn out and bringing it back. All the time working on keeping that pelvis lovely and centered. Keeping both of those hips pointing up towards the ceiling. You're going to have to work on exactly how much turnout you can keep on your way in so that when the leg comes in, you haven't fallen over to that side. Lovely. Just one more on each side so you can be nice and even. And then when you're ready, just pause with your knees bent, feet flat, and I can just make sure we're all together. No rush. Nice. Okay. Just have a little moment here and just notice, even from those few exercises, are you noticing any different feedback from the mat underneath you? What about the weight in the feet? What about the awareness through the back of the body? Maybe that's just a little bit different. Take your arms down by your side now. We're going to have a look at warming up the upper body. And I want you to just reach your arms long towards your feet. And notice as they reach long, they float off the mat. Keep reaching them long. Keep the energy out of the fingers. As the arms come up, let the palms of the hands shine in towards each other. And let the arms go overhead. And if your ribs want to float up towards the ceiling, that's absolutely fine. Just let that happen. And just take a nice inhale here. And notice as you inhale, the ribs reach up towards the ceiling. And as you exhale, the ribs feel heavy. As you breathe in, you might notice that any stretch you're feeling is eased. And as you breathe out, just encourage those ribs to feel heavy so you get a nice stretch from the arms possibly into the torso. Everyone's going to feel this a little bit differently. On your next exhale, feel the heaviness of the ribs, draw the arms back. The fingers are still long. The palms are shining in towards each other until they get to a point where they naturally just want to shine down towards the mat again. Good. You're going to inhale. Arms come up, palms shine in. Ribs can flare if that's what they want to do. If that's where your body's at, let that happen. Nice breath in. Let the ribs come up more. On your exhale, feel the ribs heavier. Inhale. Exhale, heavy ribs. Inhale. On your exhale, feel the weight of the ribs drawing the arms back down, and notice that point where the palms want to shine down towards the mat. Good job. One more time, guys. Just coming up. Again, you might notice the ribs don't really want to flare so much. If that's how you are, let that happen. So just whatever is comfortable for you. Couple of breaths here. Noticing the movement of the ribs with the breath and allowing that exhale just to create a bit of weight through those ribs, through the back of the ribs. And on the next exhale, let the weight of the ribs bring the arms back, but pause the arms when they're over your shoulders. The palms are facing in. From here, bend your elbows and let your hands come and be on the outside of your ears. This reminds me of like a Kylie Minogue song, I think, something like that. Okay? From here, can you open your elbows out wide? You're probably not going to be on the ground. You might be. And just can you check, are your elbows at 90 degrees? If they're not, just adjust them so that they can be. And just allow your collarbones to feel wide. Feel like your collarbones to try and reach towards your elbows. On your next exhale, bring the elbows together so that your elbows are in front of your chest and your hands, your palms are facing each other. You're going to inhale and just open out wide. Elbows are staying at 90 degrees, just feeling a bit of openness through the chest. From here, could you keep your elbows where they are, And internally rotate your arm bones so that the palms come and shine towards your feet. And then keep going so the palms shine down towards the floor. Bringing the arms back up, and then the palms shine up towards the ceiling. So a little bit of internal and external rotation in the arm bones. We're going to need this a little bit later in the class. So we're just using this here now. Lovely. Next time your palms are facing up towards the ceiling, could you think about extending your arms to straighten them? They might not go all the way, but think about keeping the ribs lovely and heavy, the pelvis lovely and heavy. Feel like the fingers are reaching away from those sitting bones that you were touching earlier. And then bend the elbows and bring them back. Now, stick with this level if you want, or if it feels like it's appropriate to you, you could let the hands come down to the floor. And then notice, could you slide the arms up and away from you? Are you able to do that? You might not be. So just looking at moving through the shoulders here. Very nice. Bring the arms back together. Then take the arms down by your side. Okay, we're going to look at a little bit of bridging next, and then we're going to add some arms into it. So just position yourself as you would for a bridge. So if you're new to class, most of us, it feels like you want the feet pretty close to the bum. But as you've done a couple of them, feel free to adjust it. Remind ourselves of the clock. So what happens when we let the pelvis roll back? So just let the pelvis just gently roll back, and notice that the curve of your lumbar spine starts going back in towards the mat. Start to put some weight in your feet. Feel like you're going to push your feet away from you, and notice how that could roll you up into a bridge. From here, imagine that I've grabbed the back of your t-shirt and I'm pulling it long towards the back of your knees. Take a lovely breath in here. Notice how the ribs expand. And on your exhale, feel like your breastbone softens first. And then that travels like a wave down through the body to bring you down from your bridge. And then find that central pelvis at the bottom. Take a nice breath in. On your exhale, imagine you're blowing out through your straw. Press the feet away from you. Feel the back of you lengthening, like you're opening out through the back of your knees. Take a lovely breath in. Really feel those lungs fill up. And as you come down this time, could you imagine that you're coming from behind your nose? That your tongue could be heavy. And that all the way down on the bridge, your jaw and the back of your throat could stay nice and easy. Lovely. One more time for me, folks. I'm just going to have a little look at you all. Nice. Good. Nice, everyone. Okay. We're going to stick with this, but we're going to add the arms that we've just done. Okay. So as you exhale and roll up, reach the arms out long. Palms come to shine in towards each other and go overhead. If it feels comfortable for you, allowing the arms just to rest down. That's ideally where we want to be. Still feel like you're lengthening out through the back of you. And keeping your arms long, use that exhale, find the heaviness, the ease in the back of the throat and the breastbone, and start to feel like you're coming away from your arms. When you get to about the bottom ribs coming down, allow the arms to come up. Again, feel the weight of the ribs, bringing the arms back down. Here, lovely. And again, exhaling, pressing the feet away, lengthening out through the back. Arms reach, palms shining towards each other. Lots of length in the fingers. When the arms are on the ground, pause there for me. Feel like you're trying to reach your fingers a little bit further away so your shoulders start to rise up a little bit. And then from here, keep feeling the fingers and the shoulders reaching away from you as you create some opposition on the return. And then wait for the heaviness of the ribs to bring the arms back down. One more time for me. Just in your own time with your own breath, pressing away, lengthening, reaching. Very nice, everyone. Okay. Fabulous. We're going to look for the next bit in a little bit of ab work, and we're going to take it into our roll-ups. Okay, so I know we've got one pregnant person who told me in the class. If there's anybody else, what I'd say is just be aware, ab work is absolutely fine. Well, probably for around now for another couple of weeks. And then you probably want to lay off it, okay? So you can always do the leg part of it. But for today, you should be absolutely fine. But if anything doesn't feel comfortable, then just feel free to sit out of this and I'll show you some other things that you can do. For everyone else, let's just interlace our fingers, take the hands behind the head, your thumbs are down the side of your neck, and the elbows are in your peripheral vision. That means you can just about see them in the corner of your eye, okay? So they're not out wide, they're not in too close. Let's go back to our breathing and notice, without moving anything right now, that on your exhale, that the breastbone just softens on the exhale. Inhale. And as that breastbone softens, could you also notice that it feels like it wants to glide towards the pelvis? And could you find that moment on that exhale where the head just starts to feel light in the hands? And as it feels light, you could then allow the exhale to send the ribs back up and under your heart. So the ribs are going back this way to allow you to come up into a little chest lift here. If you're a little bit tight like me, maybe you want a little wiggle here. Just kind of let all the tissue behind you just wiggle out. And then think about your bridge. So on your bridge, think about how you articulated on the way down, but do it in reverse here. So kind of delay the head coming down and think about each of the vertebrae in your thoracic spine and then in your neck, just feeling like they could soften and lengthen on the way down. But your head, with a bit of luck, feels like it's come down longer than it was before. Breath in here. On your exhale, wait for that moment where the head's light. Slide the breastbone towards the pelvis. Feel the ribs rolling back under your heart. Inhale here, feel like you're breathing into the back of you. Exhale, delay the head and feel each of the vertebrae of the upper spine and the neck just starting to lengthen and come down. Good. One more time like that. Exhaling. Inhale here. Exhale. Delay the head. And just notice if you can bring some awareness to some control through the upper portions of the spine. Inhale, exhale to come back up again and pause. I want you to just have a little wiggle here and bring your awareness to those shoulder blades on the back of you. And I'm going to ask you to think about bringing your left shoulder blade towards your left elbow and notice how that would rotate you to the right. And then feel like your shoulder blades could come back onto the back of you to bring you to center. Then your right shoulder blade could reach towards your right elbow and that would rotate you to the left. You're going to keep going side to side, really focusing on the back of the body, facilitating the rotation. Checking in with that pelvis, that it's not wanting to rock and roll too much. There will be a little bit of movement, but that it's been able to stay relatively quiet. Those of you who've been coming to my classes for a while or more experienced, if you want to, you can bring one leg up into tabletop, then the other, and do the leg part of this where you extend the opposite leg away, okay? That's an option for you. Just a few more times here, side to side, and then just having a little rest as you come down. Very nice, everyone. Have a moment here. And then if those of you who were here last week, if you remember, we were practicing how we lifted our legs up. Okay, so we're going to just revisit that a little bit. So just stand down into your left leg, that heavy weighted feeling, so that there's a moment where the right leg feels really light and can float up into a tabletop. And if your hands were still on your pelvis like before, you'd notice that your marble was able to stay in the center of your clock. Now feel the weightedness of the right leg that's up to support the left leg coming up as well. You should feel like when you're here, the pelvis hasn't rocked back and that you've still got the curve of your lumbar spine. From here, use that exhale to bring you up into a chest lift again And then reach your hands and take your hands around the back of your thighs here. Just feel like you're pressing your legs away from you and pulling them in towards you at the same time. So almost like your legs are reaching away and your arms are pulling in, but your arms provide this circle of support. So if you were to look at your arm muscles, they should look like they're doing something. From here, think about the feet being heavy and in an arc moving down towards the mat. The ribs still keep reaching back behind you to bring you up to sitting, and then sitting nice and tall when you're at the top. Okay, so let's be aware that with roll back, roll ups, roll backs, they all have a million names, that when you get sticky on them, it's not from a lack of strength, it's from a lack of mobility in the spine. So don't worry about that. What I suggest that you do is you spend some time focusing on the ribs, okay? So just like we did in our bridge, feel like you're pushing your feet away from you, and can you feel how that starts to roll you back? The sitting bones start to reach towards the heels, the ribs roll back under your heart. When you run out of arm length, slide the legs in to allow yourself to lie down. Take a nice breath in. On your exhale, press the legs away. Remember that circle of support. Ribs are rolling back behind you. Feet are heavy, like they've got some wooden heavy clogs on them. And then you're sitting up tall at the top. Inhale and exhale, rolling away. Lovely. Take a breath in. Exhale, press away. Ribs roll back and roll up. Okay. If I said to all of you guys that this is a hip exercise, a hip mobility exercise, let's just think about how that might feel, okay? So let's do exactly what we were just doing, but let's focus on this idea that as you roll away, you're creating some space at the front of your hips. Keep sending some space away, and then the legs come in. Take a nice breath in. As you exhale, feel the legs reach away, and just noticing that what we're doing is moving around our pelvis, around our hips. If it's available to you, you're going to feel it a little bit more with your legs out long, the full version of this. So legs out long, arms just resting out in front of us, okay? You can do the assisted version if you want to. And again here, have that feeling of the pelvis rolling away and that we're moving around our hips. Arms come overhead. Take a nice breath in. On your exhale, reach the arms forward, just like we did before. Feel the energy of the fingers support picking up the upper body. And then could we come up and over our legs? So we're just soft. Don't worry about touching your toes, just wherever you get to. Now imagine the ceilings in your house have all just dropped down really low. And they're literally an inch above where you are, bent forward. And you're going to try and come back now without touching the ceiling. You're going to think about rolling away from those hips, keeping low as long as you can so that you don't touch the ceiling, and you should feel a nice little stretch through your lower back here. Nice breath in. Exhale, reaching forwards. Energy out through the fingers to support the ribs coming back. Rolling around the pelvis, feeling the hips here, and then just relaxing over. And then allowing yourself to come up to sitting. Okay, all right. So let's all come into a Z sit. Let's have our right leg forward and our left leg back. And we're going to start some of our hip work here. Okay, all right. So I just want you to have your hand on the leg that's going behind you. So that is your left leg, yeah? I always get very confused between my right and left in Z sit. I don't know why. So the leg that's going behind you, I just want you to put your hand on your thigh bone. And I want you to notice that if you were to internally rotate the thigh bone, can you feel how your sitting bone would lift and your spine would start to rotate? And then if you were to allow the spine to come back, that your thigh bone would respond and come back. Now, as you internally rotate the leg, can you also notice that the thigh bone feels like it's reaching out a little bit? Take your left hand onto your right knee, push yourself around a little bit more. Think about increasing the internal rotation of the thigh to increase the rotation of your spine. And you should feel a nice stretch down the front of that thigh, all the way into the tummy. And then bringing it back. And notice how the thigh bone could go in. Good. One more time like that. So feel how it's the internal rotation of the thigh bone that's allowing the spine to rotate. Press, have a nice stretch through the front of that hip because it's been sitting a lot, so it might feel a bit tight. And as you come back now, I want you to pause when you're just in front of your right knee. So your breastbone is in front of your thigh bone. And then just walk yourself down and allow your elbows to come down. Take the left knee just a little bit away from the foot, just so there's a bit of space between them there. And just allow your upper body to rest as much as it can. So don't feel like there's too much tension here. The back foot, just flex it so that you can feel the side of the foot. And then I want you to keep the foot down and allow the knee to float up. And then bringing it back down. I'm just going to have a little look at you all as you do this. That's it. So this is external rotation of this left hip. Now what would happen if you kept the knee down and asked the foot to come up? So you would feel some internal rotation here. And you might notice one feels decidedly trickier than the other. You might notice that some muscles are screaming at you a little bit if you've not done this before. And then we're going to do a little combo, okay? So we're going to keep the foot down and let the knee lift up. Keeping the knee up, could you also lift the foot up? Then could the knee come down and then the foot come down? So the knee comes up, the foot comes up. The knee comes down, the foot comes down. Knee, foot, knee, foot. Now we're going to go the other way. We're going to go foot, then knee, foot, then knee. Foot up, knee up, foot down, knee down. Foot up, knee up, foot down, knee down. Lift the whole leg up. Stretch the leg out long. Swing it round to the front. Bring yourself back into a Z sit and just notice, how does it feel to be in the Z sit here? Nice, everyone. Okay, let's switch the legs around. And again, just notice. So in an ideal Z sit, if the hips were lovely and free, you'd be able to see yourself in your screen with your spine nice and straight up. Most of us, we end up kind of off to one side because this hip's a little bit tight. So it's quite a good way to just assess that. Okay, with the right leg going back behind you again, notice how the internal rotation lifts up the sitting bone and encourages the spine to rotate away from you. And then as you bring the spine back, notice how the thigh bone rolls back and also plugs in to the hip. Good. And then it internally rotates, hand pushes around, and give yourself a nice little stretch here. Breathing into the front of you, just to encourage yourself to find a little bit more length. And then use the exhale to bring yourself back round to center. And again, internal rotation, pressing around. And then as you come back, pause when you're in front of that front leg. Walk your knee a little bit away from your foot and allow your body to come back down. Back foot is flexed. Let the foot be heavy now so that you can let the knee lift up. This is a little bit of external rotation of the hip and then down. Let's just do 4 of these. Trying to prevent any tension creeping into the upper body. Keep that nice and easy. Then keep the knee down and see if you can do 4 internal rotations where the foot comes up. You may notice that this side feels very different to the other. I am certainly noticing that in my own body. And then let's add in those combos. So let's do the knee up, the foot up, the knee down, the foot down. Knee up, foot up, knee down, foot down. Knee, foot, knee, foot. Let's go the opposite way. Foot, then knee, foot down, knee down. Foot up, knee up, foot down, knee down. Foot up, knee up, foot down, knee down. Lift the whole leg up, straighten, bring it back up, and then come and notice that Z sit. And if you've got enough room, flex both feet, then how would it be to switch from one side to the other without ideally using your hands, and just notice what's available to you. It might not be. So try and keep your feet where they are, so the feet stay where they are, and then the knees come up and go down. If you're pregnant, this is not probably going to be available to you, I imagine, so don't worry about it. Okay. So for my pregnant lady, okay, we're going to do a little series now lying on our tummy, which isn't probably going to be appropriate for you, I would imagine. It depends. I was probably about 18 weeks when I stopped doing prone work. So what I would suggest for you is feel free to go back to doing the bridging that we've just done. The other options you've got are things like you can spend some time in a quadruped, yeah, doing your opposite arm and leg. And you can even just take the knees out wide and just sit back here and just have a little wiggle from side to side. Okay, so that's going to be your options. For everybody else, could I get you to lie down on your tummies and come into a capital E position, yeah? So we've done this lying on our back, and we're now going to do this lying on our front. That's it. Lovely. Okay, so this is a scarecrow. This is a shoulder mobilization exercise. And it's a bit like what we just did with our hips, but we're going to do it with our arms now. So allow the pelvis to feel nice and heavy into the ground. Allow the legs to feel like they're streaming away from you. And again, notice that your elbows are at 90 degrees and that your elbows are in line with your shoulders. And then from here, I just want you to think about keeping the elbows heavy into the ground, and notice, could you allow the hands and the lower portion of the arms to lift up? It's not going to be a big movement. So elbows heavy, hands reach up. You could think about the elbows reaching out wide. And as you do this, notice what's actually happening is the upper arm bones are having to externally rotate to allow the hands to come back up. From here, next time the hands are up, could you get the elbows to come up? And then could the elbows come down? And could the hands come down? I'm going to come and have a little look at you. I know this can be really tight, but it's a very powerful exercise. So you're going to notice from here that there's some rotation in the arm bones to allow the hands to move up, and then they're going to have to rotate even more, because when you've got the elbows up, you ideally want the hands to still be a little bit higher. Very nice, everyone. Yeah, you might be noticing a load of clunk and clicks. Siobhan, have you got a question? Hold on, let me, no, that's fine. Oh, it's just your hand, sorry. It's just your hand. Okay. All right. Let's build on this, folks, okay? So keep those legs streaming away from you, so they're not off the mat, but they've got energy running through them. Let's all go together. So let's do the hands, the elbows. From here, could you let your head float away from the mat? So it's not a big movement. Remember last week we were playing with how we get our head to lift up. Then the head comes down, then the elbows come down, then the hands come down. So we have the hands, the elbows, the head comes down, elbows come down, hands come down. Good. Okay, hands, elbows, head. Now this is what we were doing on our back before. So can you reach the arms long away from you, feeling like they're moving away from your pelvis? Then bend the elbows to bring the arms back. Take the head down, the elbows down, the hands down. We go hands, elbows, head. Pause here, folks. Could you reach the legs away from you even longer so they come off the mat? Could you get the hands to shine in towards one another? And could you reach them long away from you? So now you're in a long line. Your legs are up, your arms are up. Could opposite arm and leg just reach away a little bit further, and notice how they lift up a little bit, then relax. And you're going to do opposite arm and leg are going to reach away from each other. Notice how it's the reach that provides a teeny weeny bit of lift. We're just going to do 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bend the elbows back in, palms are facing down. Let the legs relax. Slide the hands now so they're next to your chest and allow them to come onto the mat. The elbows are up. My head is still floated up. My legs are reaching long. My pelvis is heavy. I'm going to reach the elbows back in space and notice how that could just encourage my ribs to come forwards a little bit more. And then relax it all the way down. Okay, so we're really going to look at opening up through the front of the body now. It always gets very tight in there when we've been sitting a lot. So you're going to reach the elbows back towards the heels. Notice as the elbows reach back, the collarbones get wide, the head lifts, and keep reaching the elbows back to encourage the breastbone to reach the front edge of your mat. Feel like your hands are pushing forward, your elbows are pulling back. And then relaxing it back down. Good. The neck is staying long. Remember, this movement is just happening in the upper back. The neck isn't doing this. So elbows reach back. Breastbone reaches forward. Stay here for a moment. Notice, could your inhale encourage your ribs to move forwards and down towards the mat a little bit more? Could your exhale encourage the elbows to slide back a bit more and the shoulder blades to drop back? Good. Stick with this if you want, or if you feel like you're able to, have done this before, put some weight into the hands. Keep that feeling of the breastbone coming forward to come up into a swan. Start to bend the elbows to come down, delaying the spine as you do, and lay yourself out nice and long. One more time with the swan if you want, or just do your prone press. So the elbows reach back, collarbones get wide. Breastbone feels like it's reaching forwards and down towards the front corner of your mat. Keep that openness there. Everyone's looking great. Yeah, nice. And then heavy elbows as you come back down. Lovely. Give your head a little bit of a rest. You're going to take your left hand, if you want it, as a little bit of a pillow for your head. And your right hand, you're going to be your teacher again, okay? And you're going to put it under the bony part of your right hip. Okay, so without too much thought, I want you to just bend your right knee and notice, does your hip want to move away from your hands? Okay, and then relaxing it back down. Okay, so this time I want you to focus on, as you bend your knee, you're going to flex your foot. Could you almost encourage the hip to push more into your fingers so that you get a bit of length through the front here? That's it, and then relax it down. Do that a couple more times. You can give yourself a little bit of a prod here, just so that your nervous system really knows what we're doing. So often it's quite common that as we lift up, that the hip lifts away from the ground. So you're just using your hands here. Great. Let's do the other side. So let's take the left hand under the left hip. And again, just want you to notice what happens if you don't think about it. And then could you bring a bit more focus into it? So think about the hip staying heavy into the fingers, and as you bend the knee and flex the foot, you could encourage the hip to press down even more, so you get a nice bit of length through the front of the body. Good. Just do that a couple of times for me. Nice, everyone. And then just relaxing it there. Okay, I want you now to bring your elbows under your shoulders so that you're in a position where you're kind of like propping yourself up, okay? And I want us to try and find a little bit of extension through the spine here, okay? So from here, could you pull the elbows in towards you so that you can feel that breastbone reaching forwards like you had in your swan, okay? Your hips should feel nice and heavy. Now, could you bend your right knee, flex foot, thinking about keeping that hip down into the ground. And you should, with a bit of luck, feel a nice stretch from your tummy all the way down through your side, depending how tight you are. Keep pulling the elbows in as you go to the other side. It's really easy to sort of slump back out of this and just kind of wangle the legs around. And that's not the point of this exercise. You've got to pull in, think about the collarbones being wide, that lovely extension through the front. And then as you add in the bend of the leg, are you able to create length all the way down the fascia and the tissue of the front of the body on that side? Now, let's do it with a pointed foot. Can we keep contact with a pointed foot? Still feel that sense of the hip going down into the mat. And then if you want to have a little bit of fun with this, you can let the foot come up pointed, relax it a little bit, then flex and bring it in again, and point it again, and then relax it down, okay? So a little bit of choreography. So you go point, flex, point, and relax, and point, flex, point, and relax, and point, flex, point. Keep pulling in those elbows. Keep lifting the chest. Good. Point, flex, point. Last one, point, flex, point. Good. Push yourself back into a child's pose and just have a little breather here for me for a moment. Just rock side to side. Hopefully those hips feel like they've had a little bit of oiling in there now. And then allow yourself to come up to a quadruped position, so a 4-point kneeling position for me, everyone. Let's just spend a moment playing with the setup of this. So you want nice wide hands. And when your hands are down, you want the palm of your hand to almost form like a little dome, okay? You want your hands, roughly under your shoulders. Externally rotate the arms so that the elbow creases are facing forward, if you can. If you've got really hypermobile elbows, I'd still like you to try and find that, but just try and find it so they're not locking out. And then from here, could you try and keep your mat away from you? So just have a feeling like you're pressing the ground away from you, like you're trying to keep the ground away. And notice how that's allowed the shoulder blades to come around the side of your rib cage a little bit more. And then just play with where your weight is. So just rock forwards and back. And notice that if you're really far forwards over your hands, it's really heavy on your wrist. And then as you come back, you take the weight off your wrist. So you want to be back nicely over your thighs so that your glutes can do a lot of this work and that your hands feel relatively light, but you still feel like you're keeping the ground away from you. Now, keep your weight in both legs and one hand and allow the opposite hand to be light and just to reach out in front of you. And then bringing it back in. Stand into that arm now and the two legs. You've got your 3 points of contact as you send the arm away. Notice that as you switch, that some muscles have to turn on to prevent you from changing position. So that if you had a tray of drinks on your back, it will be able to stay there. Now let's see if we can do the same thing with the legs. So now you're in both arms and one leg can just reach towards the back of the mat, keep reaching it, and then it will come up. Bring it back in. Notice how you can switch the weight. Don't drop your tray of drinks. And don't think about lifting the leg. Instead, think about lengthening the leg, and then it will come up. Now, if you want to, you can do opposite arm and leg, but bring your focus on what is staying still. Notice that moment when you come back in and wait for the switch, that you've really set up the system. If I go too quickly, it's impossible for me to not rock and roll. You've got to have that moment where all 4 limbs are down, where you've switched the weight over and the system has adapted so that you could send it out. Now, if you have got opposite arm and leg going, pause next time you've got an arm and a leg out. And then just like a little windscreen wiper, go out to the side, come back in, and back to center. So going out long, little windscreen wiper out to the side, back in, and down. One more time to each side. Out, wipe, in, and down. And again, your focus is on what's staying still. Come into the center. Have weight in both hands. Let's take the left leg out long. And then take the left leg behind the right leg. Yes, it goes across my body and let it touch down onto the floor. And then slide the leg back in space so that you can have a nice little glute stretch here. Okay, for most of you, this is a glute stretch. I never understand why, but for me, this is much more of an inner thigh stretch, but that's obviously just where I am tight here. Okay. Again, just use the exhale to find some weight to encourage some length, just from a place of ease. And then coming back, find your quadruped. Right leg's going to lengthen this time. It's going to come across the left side of the body. You're going to touch the toe down. You're going to slide it back. And you can just rock a little bit on that left leg, just to kind of notice where do you need to find that length, that sense of ease. Use that exhale to encourage some space. And then come back up to center. From here, just sit back onto your feet. In fact, why don't we just tuck our toes under and sit back onto our feet for a moment? And just have a little bounce here. I know this can be awful for some people, but if you've been sitting a lot, this is going to feel quite tight. And then just come up into a high kneeling position for me. Relax the feet. Okay, we had a little look at this last week. You're going to stand down into one leg and then let one leg come forward and then bring it back. Stand down into the other leg. So what you're watching for is that your leg isn't coming around the side, that you're able to create enough space and stability so the leg can come through and back. Next time the leg is through, tuck that back toe under. Stand down into both feet so that you come up. You're going to lose my head on the camera. And then bend both legs and kind of delay it a little bit. So you're going to get a nice stretch in the hip on that back leg. Relax the foot. Bring the leg back under. Come forward with the leg. Tuck the toe under. Stand into both legs to come up. And then keeping the weight in both legs, bend the legs, delay it a little bit so you get a nice sense of length down through that back leg. One more time on each side. Coming forward, tuck the toe under, stand into both legs. Come up, down, feel that nice sense of length through the back hip. Release. Next time you come up, take a step forward, and then just find a place to stand again for me. And if it feels comfortable and available to you, just close your eyes. Take some nice deep breaths here. And just notice your feet. Where's the weight on your feet now? How do your knees feel? Do your knees feel easier? Different? The same? Just notice. What about the curves of your spine? What about your collarbones, your shoulders? Do your arm bones feel like they're rolling in or rolling out or in the center? Where is your head in relation to your ribs, in relation to your pelvis, in relation to your feet? As you take some deep breaths in, does your weight sway or do you stay more in the center? Does one side feel longer than the other? Do they feel even? If you had an imbalance before, you might now feel more imbalanced. Yeah. So if my left side is short and I've done some work to open it, as I stand here, I'm probably going to notice that my left side feels super long. But if I looked at myself in the mirror, I would notice that both my shoulders were at the same height. So again, go back to your imaginary mirror in front of you and can you imagine what you're seeing in terms of your alignment at the front and at the side? And then just coming back into how you're feeling. And just take a moment to recognize any changes. To thank yourself for giving up some time on a Saturday afternoon to move and to connect with your body. Just having one moment here just to notice your breath. Notice the width that you can create with your breath. Almost a feeling as you breathe in that your arms go out to the side. And as you breathe out, that you feel like you're getting longer. Breathing in, you're getting wider. Breathing out, you're going longer. Notice if your breath feels smooth or maybe it has a texture. Notice any sense of smell you get through that breath. The sense of taste as you lick your lips. The feeling of touch as you feel the ground underneath you or maybe your fingers on your clothes. Any sounds you might hear or the sound of my voice. And in a breath that feels right for you, just allowing your awareness and your sight to come back into the room. Just going to shake out the left arm, shake out the right arm, shake out a leg, the other leg, everything else, just shaking out anything that you don't need. And thank you very much, guys. I hope you're feeling a little bit longer through your front. There's a little bit more movement in your hips and that your spine feels like it's been nicely mobilized. Thank you so much for watching one of our videos. Please do subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more from Soul Pilates. And remember, if you would like to attend one of our full-length virtual classes live, you can do that by booking at mysoul.studio. See you then. Bye.